Hello, my friend, and thank you so much for tuning into the URC space today. We are unboxing our lives one blank space at a time. It's Nash here, your favorite podcaster. And today, as promised, we are going to be talking and diving into our eating behaviors and the different relationships that we tend to have with food with the help of this episode's very special guests. Today with me on the show, I'm really excited to have my first guest of not just the season, but of the show in general. And he is an associate professor at James Madison University, where he serves as the program director of the Dietetics Graduate Program. He is a credentialized registered dietitian, and using interprofessional team approach to research, he and his team study different nutrition interventions and exercise modalities to help individuals prevent and treat chronic diseases and to improve their health-related quality of life. He and his team also examine various nutrition manipulations to improve athletic performance, and I'm so glad to call him friend, brother, and to have him as my first guest this season on the show. Please help me welcome Dr. Akers here.
Yeah, thank you, Nash. Appreciate the wonderful introduction. Looking forward to unboxing some items with you this afternoon.
Yeah, I'm really excited about this conversation, and we're so glad to have you here on the show. And before we get into all of the nitty gritty of what our meat of our conversation is going to be, can you just share with us a little bit about what got you into this field and why you've been intentional with dedicating your life to the realm of dietetics?
Yeah, so, in college, you're always, I always have those crossroads of which direction you can go. And, we can get into, the directions that I wanted to go or I was planning on going. But I think when it came down to it, at that point in my life, I really understood, how much I enjoyed physical activity. I enjoyed, the competitiveness of lifting, and also, how important like nutrition and meal planning, how important that was not only to, athletic performance when I was, kind of competing and lifting, but also just everyday health. As I was diving into all the different career possibilities in nutrition. And that's one of the great things about in the nutrition field. I think a lot of times we think it's only, kind of one thing. You can work in a hospital or you can, work in food, food service management, but it's just so vast. And I think that's one of the things that really got to me about like how you can just manipulate things that we take for granted. And I think a lot of times we take food and our nutrition for granted. And there's so many things that we can do with it to assist us in competition and also look at our health. And it's just really fascinating to me. I really appreciate the fact that it's a pretty hardcore science.
Yeah,
and I just really enjoyed it, and just kind of through my career, just continued on. And I think as I've progressed out of the competition realm of nutrition and athletic performance, just the enjoyment that I've gotten, just trying to make a difference. Trying to find different practices and theories with nutrition and help individuals with health. And that's kind of how my career has evolved into being a professor.
Oh, that's awesome. And I love how you get to work with people and you've been able to kind of take what you've learned and what you've researched and what you've studied and kind of merge and been able to merge all of that into just your everyday profession, which I think is absolutely phenomenal. So I have a interesting question for you. So, I mean, I think, when it comes to eating healthy and wanting to eat healthy, we all know that that's something, we should be inclined to do or be encouraged to do. But for some of us, we find it extremely hard. Why, in your opinion, why do you think why eating healthy is so hard for us to do, especially when in some instances, many of us may be educated beyond what our actions reflect?
Yeah. So Nash, I think that's kind of a two-part, two parts to this question that you have here. It's a really good question. Why is it, just so hard to eat healthy? It's a pretty loaded question, because I think when we look at it, healthy means a lot of different things to different people.
That's good.
And I think that when you look at, person A over here versus person B, the needs for person A is going to be different than the needs for person B. Now we all have the innate needs that are kind of met with our dietary guidelines and recommendations. But I think we need to get into the fact that we need to, the healthy piece needs to say that we need to be nourished, and where we need to make sure that we have the nutrients every day in order for us to be physiologically healthy and to be nourished, right? That's kind of but this person over here that's, participating in a lot of physical activity or has a higher demanding job, their healthy is going to look a little differently than this individual over here that may have more of a desk job that's not very physically active. And so that's kind of where we get into the healthy. And I think that's where you get into the educated piece of it. And, nothing to influencers out there. And I think influencers are great for individuals, but I think when we get into the education of nutrition, it's one of those things. I think we're in the world that everybody is an expert, and really, it's nothing to individuals that have found success doing what they have done. But everybody is so unique and everybody is so individualized, and that's where you get into individuals that are experts, that are credentialed, that have had 6 or 7 years of nutrition education, that are in the sciences, that are in the research currently and every day. Those are the individuals that people should turn to, and just because what worked for me, it doesn't mean it's going to work for you, Nash.
Right. And
especially when we get into like chronic disease and weight loss, which I know we'll probably talk about through this session today. But again, I think that's where we need to really be better consumers of the information that we find online, or we find on. So I think that's kind of the education piece. And again, we can be highly educated, but it's it's kind of like going to YouTube to fix your hybrid car, right? I mean, there's a lot of experts that can fix a Tesla on YouTube, but when it goes down to it, why are you going to try to fix a $80,000 car yourself? And it's kind of the same thing with nutrition. And I think going to someone that really understands physiologically and metabolically what is happening in your body, and there are some things that are out there that, in my opinion, can be dangerous and can actually lead you to more adverse effects than healthy effects. And so, in my world and what I teach my students and what we do research on is actually, evidence-based. We're actually trying to test the evidence to add to the literature out there to help individuals. So, that's it again. So why is it so hard? I mean, one thing is there's just way too much information out there that is not it's overwhelming. I actually feel for individuals that that's where they have to go for their information, because it's just, I mean, you look up any kind of website, or you go in any kind of search engine and go to the health place, and there's probably like 10 different things about nutrition. One says, fats are bad. Okay. This is one source, and another source says carbohydrates are bad. All right. So what is it? I mean, you gotta have one of those, right? For energy. And so I think it's just so flooded with misinformation and these so-called experts that are out there. And I think for individuals that do not have a nutrition background, I think it's very difficult, and it would be really. I mean, sometimes it's even difficult to me. You're looking at this, especially if you're a documentary person. There's so many documentaries out there that says you got to eat this way, you got to eat this way, and they're very convincing. And that's the thing, I think individuals need to realize with documentaries is they're so convincing. Their job is to sell an idea, and it is a very biased idea, and again, they're very convincing. Yeah. So again, the flood of information out there is, and I think individuals have to realize, even scientists, we, unfortunately, nutrition is a very, very young science. I mean, food has been around since, the Garden of Eden, but it's a very young science of what food actually, its role in our body, and it's ever changing.
It's ever evolving. Yeah. And I think that's I mean, okay, like I'm listening to you now, and it's like, wow, part of the issue with just people being willing to, make sound conscious decisions is just that we're just living in an age and where people are just overwhelmed with information, all saying the same thing, but in different ways, or maybe they're all saying different things in the same way. And it just brings us confusion, and people just want to give up, and they're just like, well, then what do I do? So, say someone is, they've checked with this source, they've checked with that source, they've checked with this source. I mean, where would they find themselves finding good, sound information, when it comes to wanting to eat healthy and be healthy? What have you found in your experience or in your research that has been a really good tool for individuals to seek out and use?
So obviously, going to a nutrition professional, somebody that has gone through school, that has a code of ethics and a scope of practice, and this nutrition expert is a registered dietitian. That's kind of the hierarchy. Now there are some other certifications and credentials of that, but if you're looking for a registered dietitian nutritionist, that is the first place that you should go. If you're the type of person that you don't want to seek out other people's help, those types of things. When you're reading articles and stuff, make sure that it actually has references in it, and make sure that it has peer reviewed references. It's not just because it's a physician or just because it's the celebrity or whatever. Make sure that it's got references. And I think, one of the things that I always tell my students is that when you go to purchase a car, if you're going to make a really large purchase, right? Yeah. Whether you purchase a house, a car, a TV, iPhone, whatever, think about all the time you spend researching it, right? Okay, what kind of engine does it have? What gas mileage does it have? What's the transmission? What's the fuel economy? I mean, you sit there and you just break it down. But when it comes to what we put in our body every single day, we just take everybody's word for it. And and I think we need to we need to be better consumers of what we consume. And so, it's good to ask questions. I think it's good to ask questions for dietitians, good to ask questions for physicians. And I think, but when you're going out and searching that information, you need to make sure that there's evidence behind it. And it's not just this one article that was way off in left field, because even the scientists get it wrong. And so we got to make sure that what we're promoting, and that's where you get into the credentials, right? The registered dietitian is what we give through medical nutrition therapy and through our counseling sessions is evidence based, right? We don't go off in the left, we don't go off in the right field. We provide things that are evidence based, and as a consumer, you need to make sure, don't just take the first thing. Yeah, make sure that if you're planning a different meal plan, or even if you're one that you have to have like a name attached to it, a diet, make sure you're researching it. Just don't take this person that is on YouTube that works for them. Make sure that you do your evidence and due diligence, because we do that with a lot of other things. Why won't we do that with what we consume?
That's so good. Yeah, that's so good. And I think that just needed to be said and really just absorbed because you're so right. I mean, we do it in every other area, or at least I would say the areas in which we find to be very important or to be big ticket areas. Our bodies should be in that same exact category. So thank you for just elevating that perspective. So when looking,
sorry.
No, go ahead.
I was just going to say what's a bigger ticket item than your body, right?
Tickets
your
to
health.
see Mariah Carey in concert, right, Mariah? I'm joking. But
have you gotten through her book yet? Have you gotten all the way through her book yet?
I haven't gotten all the way through yet, but I'm making my way through it, and I'm learning a lot more about her in a very funny way. But she hasn't mentioned anything about diet yet, so we'll see if maybe something in our conversation encourages her to come on the show. But when we're looking at like what we put in our bodies, and we're looking at just the overall picture of optimal wellness and health. For you, would you say? Because I'm going back to what you're saying. When we're looking at what we put in our bodies, we need to elevate our research and our scrutiny and just just the standard we hold with what we are consuming. As it relates to the suggestive information that is out there about what we put in our bodies. So for you, would you say that the diet that we consume, is that a domino effect for thriving in life, like being the baseline for, just how everything is propelled and moving forward with wellness? Or is the diet just a contributing agent to a larger domino in the lives that we lead?
Well, I think the domino word is kind of interesting with this question, and also the diet. I think when you get very comfortable with food, I don't really like using the word diet. What I think diet is kind of a 4-letter word, and I think when I think of a diet, it's something you get on and off. And okay. I think what we're hoping is you get to the point where you've done your research, you've done your due diligence, and you do your research on yourself, right? You need to know, because again, person A and person B is totally different, right?
Yeah.
And it's just like, you may have brown eyes, I have hazel eyes, you may have, blonde hair, I may have, black hair, right? Our bodies are, again, we have the same genetic makeup. You love to have hair, right?
I love to have hair, yeah.
So I wish I wasn't losing mine, but it's okay. But yeah, it's just like we all have the same premise of the genetic makeup, but how all that put together is totally different. And it's the same way. You can consume a food that you're fine with, but for me, it could actually have more of like an inflammatory property where it caused me a little bit of bloating and just discomfort. And when you have discomfort, you don't feel well, and that's kind of part of that domino effect. And I think that's part of spending that time and understanding and researching what food is best for you. And it's kind of a difference. It's one of those interesting when you work with athletes, especially higher level athletes. They're pretty much you tell them that they're going to be a second faster if they do this. They'll do whatever. Right, but when we're trying to work with them, is they do a really good job of understanding what is best for their body, especially as a performance. Now, it may not be, I put best in quotation marks because sometimes it can be, not the best thing for them, especially like cutting weight and those types of things. But but I think we need to really understand what fuels our body. Some people they can eat it late at night. Some people, if they eat late at night, they have really, they have nightmares, right? They don't get in that sound type of sleep pattern. So that's just part of it. That's just part of researching your body and understanding, what food you can eat and what food you can't eat. But for me, that's when you get into that, that happy space, that space, it really becomes, a meal plan, a meal pattern. And,
okay.
But that's the hard part. I think where people just, they don't take the time to really understand what that looks like for them. They want this person over here, YouTube, or this book to tell them what to do. And I think that's just a society of us just, you know, I mean, I don't want to offend anybody, but it's just kind of us being lazy, right? You know, it's just because we spend so much time researching all this other stuff. But when it comes to our health, I think we're very lazy about things that we can do to promote, a really good health for us. So for me, to be too honest, when you look at the domino effect of whether you're going, you're feeling good in life or feeling bad in life, food is a major component to that. And I know we're going to talk about it for behaviors a little bit, but I mean, it's just like, we have to have food.
Yeah.
Like there's nothing else in life that we have to have, but in order to survive, you have to have food to survive well. You have to have nourishment, and I'll lump water in that as well with food. But you have to have that. We don't have to have TV. We don't have to have we have to have food, and so it does have a major domino effect of whether the dominoes are being stood up, right, or they're falling down. It's just again, it's a major domino effect. But I think you're trying to get yourself in that that happy place of and the relationship with food and knowing your body, knowing how you react to different food. Like for me, I can eat flaxseed powder, but I can't eat flax seeds. Right. So if I have anything with flax, so it's just like that. That's my body. But I know some people that they can eat flax seeds all day long. So
I have flaxseed every day in the morning with oatmeal.
Yeah.
But I think I'm sorry. Go ahead.
I was going to say, is it ground or is it actually seeds?
Oh, it's the ground. It's ground.
See, that's me. So again, everybody's so different. Our GI tract and our microbiome is so different. It's just you have to find. That's where you get into that meal plan and meal pattern of okay.
I like that meal pattern. I like that. Is the definition of that just something that we adopt and not necessarily something that we're on?
Mm-hmm. Yeah, exactly. I mean, meal pattern, meal planning. It's just you, right? It's what. So I mean, another example is some people, they can have the recommended allotment of sodium, right? They can, maybe have a little bit of soup. They can have some chips and those types of things, and it doesn't affect them. Then we have other people that they look at a bag of chips and they swell up. They retain water. Right. And so knowing how your body reacts to this type of stuff, and again, knowing how your body reacts when you participate in physical activity, when you have stress, I think that's when you get into this pattern of where you know yourself and you know your food. And I think you can get comfortable within that where you may not, stress eat, which I know we're going to talk about here in a little bit, but you may not stress eat, or like, oh wow, I can't. I'm going to go, work out. I'm going to go walk. I'm going to run. I'm going to lift. I can't eat. I can't eat a meal 30 minutes before I work out. I got to eat an hour beforehand. Some people, after they work out, they can't consume any food. So it's just like knowing your body and knowing how your body reacts because we're all different. And
knowing yourself.
And that's where I get into this meal pattern is that, when you know yourself, but you have to put that resource and that research in yourself. And it takes time. And it takes time because just like, our bodies and our hair, it changes, right?
It does.
It's ever evolving, and you just got to make sure that you take time about it and experience new things and know things that work and things that doesn't work. And it's difficult. It takes time, and a lot of people don't. They would rather spend their time researching a car and instead of researching themselves. And again, that's just. Yeah. And that's just our society, it's just the way our society.
I think it is. And going back to what you said earlier, I don't, I would hope no one's offended by saying lazy. I think a lot of it too, just being in this information overload day and age that we live in, we also have this instant gratification that we just want, we want that quick answer that I don't have to read and dive and all of that into because we just want it now, got to have it now and move on. I'm just thinking about myself like, wow, I should have the investment of what works for my body and understanding patterns. And last week on the show, we were talking about self-care, this being, a component of self-care, investing in myself and knowing what works for my body. But I don't know if I have, I know I've fallen short in a number of times when knowing myself or understanding what works for my body in different times. So that's just been a great perspective so far that you've added here to the show. And that is where we're going to just leave things for this week. I want to thank my guest today, Dr. J, for joining me here on the show. And I'm so happy that he's going to be resuming this conversation with us next week. So until we resume then, remember to keep unboxing your life one blank space at a time, living undaunted, knowing you're unbreakable, and embracing the reality you're simply a treasure that's unfinished. Because you've been redeemed, restored, and reclaimed. That's a fact. Life is always best lived outside the box. Stay free, my friend, and we'll continue this conversation next week.